Melissa, aka Red Shirt.
Hello, I'm Nicholas, aka Red Saber.
And today we're going to be talking about Metal Gear Solid 3 versus
Assassin's Creed 2.
And the reason we chose these is because I chose Metal Gear Solid 3 because it is one of my favorite. Metal Gear Solid is one of my favorite game series in its whole. But I chose Metal Gear Solid 3 because it's the first one chronologically in the series. And eventually, we are going to have a series of videos dedicated to Assassin's Creed versus Metal Gear Solid.
And I chose Assassin's Creed 2 because it was the first good game out of the series.
Okay, so I'm going to start since he started last time by telling you a little bit about the game, and it will get kind of complicated and confusing, but I will explain in the end what's going on. So, Naked Snake, aka Big Boss, but he hasn't been awarded the title of Big Boss yet, is on a stealth mission in Soviet Russia during the Cold War. His job is to rescue this weapons specialist named Sokolov, who's invented a tank with missiles. So basically, he could shoot nuclear weapons from anywhere in the world. His job is also to keep the weapon out of the hands of Volgin, who is like the main villain of the thing. Now, when he's trying to take Sokolov back to the USA, he is intercepted by his former mentor, the boss, who taught him everything he knows, including CQC, close quarters combat. They actually came up with it together, and it ends up being a big part of the game in this game because you're supposed to use it for like interrogating guards and stuff like that. So what ends up happening is she defects over to the Soviet Union along with her Cobra unit, which includes the Fury, the End, the Fear, and the Pain. It used to include the Sorrow, but you learn later in the game that the boss had to kill the Sorrow as part of a mission. And you also learn something really interesting also in the game, and I'll get to that towards the end. So you end up having, the Snake ends up having to come back to get Sokolov back along with the Shagohod and kill the boss. So he goes through all of Soviet Russia, and in order, he meets this little hotshot little commander named Major Ocelot, who ends up being Revolver Ocelot a lot later in the series. And the thing that happens is Snake looks at him and goes, "You seem to curl your wrist, do something to hold the gun a certain way to absorb the recoil." I don't remember exactly what the line was. Quote, when he was using like a pistol, and he looks at him and goes, "That's more of a revolver technique." And I'm like, Snake screwed the world in that moment because like Ocelot was like a boss after that. But then he has to take out, in order to get to the boss, he has to take out the Pain, the Fear, the End, and the Fury. Then when you finally get to the thing, the secret agent you meet earlier in the game, Eva, is there posed as a KGB spy. And you end up having to infiltrate the facility to help work on destroying the Shagohod. You get caught when you're dressed like a major who also mysteriously looks exactly like Raiden. Nice job, Kojima. But you end up being interrogated, and the boss gets told to cut out your eyes, or Snake's eyes. And when she goes to do it, Ocelot accidentally lets off a shot and ends up shooting Snake directly into his right eye. Henceforth the eye patch throughout the rest of the series. And he ends up escaping out of his cell when Volgin puts him there for further interrogation later. And he ends up encountering the Sorrow, the same, who is a ghost now, the same man that the boss ended up having to kill as part of a mission. After Eva gets you equipment and clothes, you head out to destroy the Shagahod, and after you do that, you meet the boss in this lily-white field of Easter lilies to fight your final battle of the game with the boss. And you learn not only was Ocelot born on the battlefield if you listen to the Codex enough, but the boss on D-Day had a baby on the battlefield. Henceforth, the boss is Ocelot's mama, which is probably one of the biggest plot twists I've heard ever. But after you kill the boss, you get a recording at the end of the game from Eva, revealing that the entire boss defecting over to Russia, you have to kill her, was all a setup because Vulcan launched nuclear whistles and they knew someone had to go down for it. In the end, the boss was the good guy, and the game ends with Snake, who had then been awarded a medal and the title of Big Boss, saluting Boss on her grave after giving her back her gun and a bouquet of Easter lilies. Your turn.
My game is Assassin's Creed 2. The best game in the series. And a game that's own story is not shoved up its own ass.
It wasn't shoved up its own ass. I understood what I was talking about perfectly.
I will warn you, there are spoiler warnings. Unlike she decided not to give anyone.
Why would I do that? That's not fun.
My game, Assassin's Creed 2, revolves around the main character Ezio Auditore da Firenze in 15th century Florence, Italy. The story revolves around him seeking revenge against Rodrigo Borgia, who killed his father and brothers in a Templar conspiracy in which the Templar is the Knights Templar who existed around the time of the Third Crusade, who believed that the only way there could be true peace and order in the world is as if all the people who are pretty much that doesn't contribute much to society as a whole, and everyone has to be subjugated and ruled. A better example would be 1984 by George Orwell. Go read it. And their main adversaries are the assassins, who believe in free choice and free will. In the course of the game, Ezio hunts down every person who's in league with Rodrigo Borgia, from the Pazzis to... can't remember all of them, but a couple of Roman officials, to the point that Rodrigo Borgia becomes Pope Alexander the Fourth or the Second, in which he becomes Pope to look for a mysterious artifact known as the Piece of Eden, which came from the first civilization. What the first civilization is, the precursor race to humanity that had... The Earth had been destroyed at one point in time. This is spoiled in Assassin's Creed 3 by a solar flare. And knowing that they're impending doom, they saved as many of their own kind, but more of humanity, so humanity would survive. And they left their object, that's called Pieces of Eden, to hint to humanity to figure out that they need to prepare for the next Earth-ending event. But of course, as humanity ignores it, and sees as objects of power since they can control people. The game ends with Ezio finally reaching Rodrigo Borgia and having a bare-knuckles fight against the Pope itself. That's really going to satisfy a lot of Catholics. Not hating on the Catholics, y'all good people, just saying. But at the end, after beating him, he takes the Piece of Eden, which opens a vault that is underneath the Vatican, which leads to a room that has a hologram of a first civilization named Juno, who leaves a message for Ezio, but is not for Ezio, but is for Desmond, Ezio's descendant in the present day, who is using a technology called the Animus to allow him to live the life of Ezio and see how it used to be, to help him in modern times as the modern assassins look for these ancient pieces of Eden that the Templar do. And the message that Juno leaves for Ezio is for Ezio, for Desmond to know that the world is ending and that they need to find more artifacts to know how to save the world.
Okay, now we're each going to mention a few things that we thought were interesting about the series or the game. My thing was I love the ending of this game because it has foreshadowing before you even hear that the boss was really a true patriot because she gave her life for her country and let her name be completely destroyed and slaughtered for the sake of her homeland. Land was when I'm gonna steal kind of what Washmo just said, but I completely agree with what they said. Was when the flowers after she died turned from white to red as a symbol of the blood that was just lost for her country, and also the blood that ended up on Snake's hand because he reached out and grabbed one of the petals.
So, aka the flowers turn red because her blood touched them.
No, not just in the one spot. The entire field.
Yeah, blood.
The entire field.
Blood
she
is
was
liquid.
laying on the ground. Explain that, Mr. Physics, sir.
You're laying on the ground. You have a bullet hole in you. Blood is spilling out. Water expands until it has nothing left to expand. Blood does not have to expand. Blood doesn't have to expand.
Literally, it did it in the span of a second, Mr. Sir. It was beautiful. Stop trying to ruin my ending. Don't pat me.
Well, my ending sucked ass. I will admit it, because you get a cryptic message that makes no sense, and then you have to go into the present day to fight a bunch of wannabe Templars that during the credits, which made no sense. Which is my drawback from the one part of the game, along with a lot of side quests that were really unnecessary. Probably my two favorite things of the game would be the combat, since the combat greatly evolved from what it was in Assassin's Creed 1.
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought you were finished.
With it being easier to fight people, the enemies are more responsive to you, and the story itself, for being a basic revenge plot, was told interestingly and was dealt good, although it did drag on for a bit and kind of was a little unsatisfying if you know the story of Brotherhood, which we'll get into later. But it was good for what it was, and it's sad that every Assassin's Creed game after Revelation had to follow that formula. Well, after 2, because every Assassin's Creed game afterwards had to evolve about someone having to avenge someone that they loved. Brotherhood with Ezio's uncle. Revelation, not really Revelation. 3 because of Connor's mother. Edward, no, take it back. 4 Black Flag was the only one that I don't think there was revenge plot. Rogue because of Shane, because of all the innocents he had killed. Unity sucked. We'll just admit that now. Unity sucked because the story sucked. And I have not played Syndicate, but I really like to play Syndicate. Don't spoil Syndicate for me.
Another thing I really liked was Metal Gear Solid 3 introduced us to a young Ocelot, who in this series is basically one of the best double agents I've probably ever seen. He can make you think he's on your side. He can make you think he's on the other person's side. He can make you think he's like on a third side you've never even seen before. He can lie to everyone with a straight face, and everybody's gonna believe him, and it's pretty great to watch him do that.
Probably my favorite character in the game, other than Ezio, would had to have been, at least for the 1500s era, would have to have been his cousin Mario, because his cousin Mario was so insightful in teaching Ezio how to be an assassin and how he couldn't go after an revenge. He had to kind of like how the Jedis were in Star Wars. You can't go after vengeance to kill someone. What Anakin should have learned the first 3 times. But he had to resolve and do what needed to be done, and not after vengeance.
If we're talking about favorite characters, my favorite character is honestly the boss, and I am so sad that there's not like a game where you can just play as the boss or something, because honestly, she's the queen. She literally let them say she literally let the USA say terrible things about her, like she was a traitor and oh my God, she's such a terrible person. And then she let the USSR think she was a monster because she brought nuclear weapons over, which is why they had to rearrange the plan with Sokolov, because where the boss did die because of the nuclear weapons incident where Vulcan shot them at the research facility.
One other thing that was my favorite Assassin's Creed 2 is my favorite mission. Well, I don't remember what they called it. I think it was Memory. My favorite memory was DLC, and it wasn't the Battle of Florence. It was the other one where it was the book burning, and I liked it because it was really interesting. It was kind of like, if anyone knows the movie Fahrenheit 451 Under the Book, if not, look it up. It's a real good piece of fiction. And what it was, the mission of it, there was a priest who wanted to essentially dumb people down to make them believe whatever he wanted, which was them burning every piece of literature, every book, pretty much all art that existed. And it ended with the people finally figuring it out. And they went and burned him at the stake. But Ezio knew at that time, from all his lessons, that it wasn't right just to let the people have their revenge, but decided to mercifully kill him before he was burned alive. And his speech at the end was probably in my top 3 favorite speeches in game, with him stating that we don't need to follow someone because if we think of their ideals as correct, but we all have our choices. It's not something we follow everyone because everyone's doing it, but to carve out our own destinies and lives.
My favorite thing probably about the game was the underlying thing. One of the boss said, "What's it gonna be, Snake? Loyalty to your country or loyalty to me?" And in the end, he wrongfully chose loyalty to his country because in the end it was his country screwing over the boss. And I thought that was sad because he did choose loyalty to his country because he thought that was for the greater good. And in the end, he let the boss, even though the boss was choosing to take the blame, he unknowingly put all the blame on her. He unknowingly killed a woman who really didn't betray her country. She just had to act like she did because she was told to. And that made me sad.
You got anything else you want to add? Or?
I'm good.
Well, that was it. I think for the next video, we should do our least favorite game in the series, which for mine would be is a cross between Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, the first one, or 3. Don't hate, because Assassin's Creed 3 sucked. You know it sucked.
Peace Walker or Metal Gear Rising. I can't choose. They're both so terrible. I pretend they don't exist.
One of them will be the ones that we hate the most. Don't hate me for Assassin's Creed 3, because you know it sucked too.
Okay, but before we close out, I would also like to dedicate this video to my great-grandmother who just passed away on Monday morning. I love you, Gammy. And say hi to Papa for me. Bye.
Bye.